Can you believe it? Legendary Red Sox broadcaster Joe Castiglione has officially announced his retirement, and Red Sox radio broadcast will never be the same again.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Gabby, former ESPN social media associate and current host of the Boston Balling podcast as well. And I am here to bring you the latest in all things Boston Red Sox, Monday through Friday, straight to your favorite podcast feed. And the best part is it is all completely free. So you might as well check it out because Locked On is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Believe it or not, September 22nd is almost here, so you are running out of opportunities to take advantage of this great deal, so make sure you check that out. Welcome to Locked On Red Sox, where we come to you with definitely some bittersweet news today as legendary Red Sox radio broadcaster Joe Castiglione has announced his retirement at the conclusion of the 2024 baseball season. Now, he's been doing this for so long that it shouldn't really come like too much of a surprise to people just because we knew that this day was coming eventually. But it's definitely also at the same time, even though we knew it was coming, a hard pill to swallow because he's such a legend in the baseball broadcasting world. And he represented everything that Red Sox baseball was. Like you literally would hear Joe Castiglione's voice on the radio and you'd associate it with summertime, Red Sox baseball, sitting at Fenway, being at the ballpark, eating a Fenway Frank, having some soda and French fries, and just consuming everything about the baseball experience. And as soon as you heard his voice on that broadcast, you would feel like you were consumed in what was going on in the game. And I used to work at ESPN, and when I first started working there, I was commuting 45 minutes each way, and that was without traffic. And I would be driving home sometimes while the game was on. So I would immediately put on the radio broadcast and Joe would be on there doing his thing. And I would feel like I'm at the game without actually being at the game. Because one thing he did really well was he always picked up on all of the little details that were going on in the game. And he would describe everything to a T to where you would feel like you're seeing what's going on without actually seeing it. And his description of how he would describe the play that was going on at the time, I felt like I was watching it on TV when I was in reality listening to it on the radio. And that's such a special quality to have. Somebody whose voice just brings you so much comfort and brings you right into the action to be able to tell the story live to you of what's going on in the game and be able to effectively paint that picture for you when you're not able to watch it on TV. And it's just a very special person to think about because early on in his career, people were familiarizing themselves with him and who he was, but he's been doing this with the Red Sox now for 42 years. 1983 was his first year broadcasting Red Sox games in the WEEI booth. It was Carl Yastrzemski's final season of his 23-year career. As he enjoyed one last ride around the majors, Castiglione got his feet wet in Boston on a one-year contract as he replaced legendary John Miller and joined legendary Ken Coleman. Just honestly, one legend to another here. Ronald Reagan literally hadn't even finished his first term as president. Isn't that crazy? Like, this is so wild. Like, how long before I was even born he was actually doing this. And I already loved baseball at the time. Like, I grew to love the Boston Red Sox at a very young age, primarily from guys like Nomar and David Ortiz. And I had loved baseball for a long time. But when I started listening to games on the radio, Castiglione being there and sharing his passion for this team and really wanting the Red Sox to go out there and win every night drew me in even further to being a Red Sox fan and made me feel hooked and made me feel important and made me feel like I was part of the action. And it helped me to learn a lot more about the game over time because he could just pick up on the littlest of details and he would explain things so clearly and concisely that it would help people who maybe aren't as familiar with baseball understand the sport more. He brought baseball to us for over 4 decades with the Red Sox. Isn't that crazy? NESN was still a year away from launching when he started broadcasting Red Sox games. And a lot of the games at that time were only available on the radio. So everybody was listening to his broadcast. And if you're a 162 person like me who watches all 162 Red Sox games a year, he is somebody that you feel like was kind of like family to you because you're hearing this person speak for like 6 to 7 months a year on a nightly basis throughout the spring, summer, and early fall. And it's becoming part of your routine. So you almost feel like you're on the ride with this person. And with how heavily invested us Red Sox fans are, he really took us on that journey every game of 162 and even during spring training. He's always been a friendly voice and has always approached his job in the most professional way he possibly could. But it was that consistency and durability through that 4+ decades on Red Sox radio that made him as successful as he was and also landed him in the Hall of Fame as the 2024 Ford C. Frick Award winner earlier in the summer of this year. He wasn't blessed with one of those deep broadcaster voices that some people have, but he made up for that with his personality, which was just so relatable. And the jokes he would crack and what he would say on the broadcast made you feel like you could connect with him on a more personal level. So that was something that really stood out about him that kept people engaged during every broadcast. And he never missed a single detail. Like even before the internet existed, he would know random facts like how many infield pop-ups Wade Boggs hit in the course of a season or how many wall balls each Red Sox player had at Fenway. And that was before you could look it up because Google wasn't a thing at that point. It's pretty amazing. He doesn't just tell you that a player hit a ball off the monster. He tells you if it was 5 feet from being a home run or 2/3 of the way up or just above the scoreboard, which was something I always loved about him because, again, if I was driving in the car and I couldn't see what was happening, he helped me to visualize exactly where that ball went. And I could picture it, whether it was at Fenway Park or the Red Sox were on the road, I could picture where that was going. And I could paint the picture of the game in my head. You didn't really need a scoreboard to know if the Red Sox were winning or losing during any of his 42 seasons in that radio booth. He was energetic, Joe, when it was a tight game and a lot more intense, or one in which the Red Sox held a lead, but he would sound slightly down a little bit if the Red Sox were losing or were on their way to a loss. It wasn't like a somber sound. It was just he was a little bit more gloomy than usual. So that's how you would know the Red Sox were losing. Like if I would turn the game on in the third inning and I was driving home from my job at ESPN and he was on there, I would know from how his voice sounded at the time whether he was watching a game where the Red Sox were winning or not. And that to me was so powerful and made him as talented as he was in what he did. And he was just so personable and he was able to make such a mark on Red Sox Nation that will be missed forever. I mean, the Red Sox radio booth will never be the same again. And he deserves every minute of this. He deserves to go be with his wife and his kids and spend more time with his grandchildren and be able to be more involved with their lives and just enjoy his retirement. He's worked all of these years for that. But what I can say on behalf of all of Red Sox Nation, is that things on the radio will never be the same without him. And that's going to be some very tough shoes to fill for a guy who just loved every aspect of broadcasting Red Sox games and took in everything about the Fenway atmosphere and Fenway experience and would just take us genuinely through that ride of game by game what was going on with this Red Sox team during the course of a single game. And even if it was just a ball or a strike, like every pitch he would take you through and describe exactly what that pitch looked like. If the batter swung and it was outside and they were trying to make contact with it, or if it was on the inside corner, he would really paint that picture for you. And that's what made him really special. And I will forever miss that and his enthusiastic energy when he calls games. But huge congratulations goes out to Joe Castiglione. What an accomplished career, and somebody who we as Red Sox fans will forever miss being in that WEEI booth. Coming up next, we may be talking about some happy times here with a broadcaster who made such a mark on this Red Sox organization, and he will remain with the team in an honorary ambassador role. So he's not going away completely, and he'll be honored before the Red Sox regular season finale on September 29th against the Blue Jays. So there is still more time with Joe Castiglione, but we'll all miss hearing that voice in the booth. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about something that is not as wholesome of a topic as this Red Sox season just becomes more and more of a mess. If you're looking for a fun way to play daily fantasy sports, you can download America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members, and that's Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your picks are still live. All you have to do to make all of this possible for you is download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. It literally can take you as quick as 15 minutes to get your money when your picks it. So I highly recommend you checking out Prize Picks today. On a day in which Red Sox fans are celebrating the legacy that Joe Castiglione left on the Boston Red Sox organization and fan base as a whole in the WEEI radio booth, and he prepares for his retirement, the Red Sox as a team are just in a completely different situation. We're celebrating Castiglione, but not celebrating the Red Sox season, which is just turning into very much a mess right now. And I think it's in the best interest of everybody around this Red Sox organization for the season to be over, get to the offseason so the necessary moves can be made to fix this team so they can be back on track next year. And when the Red Sox played the Yankees over the weekend, I understand that tensions were high and it was very frustrating because the Red Sox lost 3 out of 4 games in that series when they were hanging on by a thread in the wild card race. So for them to go into Yankee Stadium and drop 3 of 4 was the furthest thing from ideal that could have happened. So I get everybody was frustrated, Alex Cora included. And now MLB is reviewing Alex Cora and the Red Sox because he made some comments alluding to the fact that the Red Sox tried intentionally to retaliate by hitting Aaron Judge with a pitch on Saturday. The matter is open in the league's eyes. They said it's just a standard part of the process that they look into it. They said there could be some sort of discipline that takes place here. But basically what happened was Garrett Cole hit Rafael Devers with a pitch early in the game. And Alex Cora believed that that was on purpose because Garrett Cole has always struggled against Devers in his career. So Cora thought that he was hitting him on purpose so he wouldn't have to pitch to him. So then, as a result, the Red Sox then attempted to hit Aaron Judge by a pitch. The ball went way behind Judge at the time. And basically, that was Alex Cora trying to retaliate and try to hit Aaron Judge on purpose to get back at Gerrit Cole and the Yankees for intentionally hitting Devers. And if it was just that alone, I think Cora wouldn't maybe have taken the action that he did. But after they intentionally, supposedly, according to Cora, hit Devers, then Gerrit Cole intentionally walked Devers in the fourth inning with 1 out and the bases empty, and the Yankees had a 1-0 lead at the time. So because of the fact that his first 2 at-bats of the game were a hit by pitch and then an intentional walk, I think in Alex Cora's mind, he thought that Cole was trying to do all that because he just didn't want to pitch to Devers because of how much Devers has really had his number throughout the course of his career. So in that game, when all of that happened at the time, nobody really knew that any of this was on purpose. But then when Alex Cora called it out after the fact, then the statement that was made of, we feel like Gerrit Cole hit Rafael Devers on purpose, so we tried to hit Judge in retaliation, is when it led to all these questions. Now, obviously, I get Alex Cora's reasoning of if somebody's going to intentionally hit our player, then we should try to intentionally hit them too. But I think he's very off base and out of line here by, for one, trying to intentionally hit Judge because he didn't know for sure if Gerrit Cole was intentionally hitting Devers. Like, what if he was just skittish because of the fact that he was nervous about going against Devers just because he didn't want to give up a home run to the guy who has just absolutely had his number over the years? Like, that could be nerve-wracking for a pitcher. So maybe he was just shaky. And this was shortly after Gerrit Cole went on record and said that Rafael Devers is the Latin hitter that has given him the most trouble over the course of his career. So obviously he knows that Devers has his number. So what if he was just skittish about it and it made him nervous? So he hit him because the ball slipped out of his hand or something and he didn't have the command. I mean, there's so many different scenarios and different ways that this could have gone, different reasons for why that happened. So for Cora to assume it was intentional and then try to retaliate against him, I don't necessarily agree with that logic. Now, if you add the intentional walk in a really weird situation after that, then you maybe can start to connect the dots of, okay, it is possible he hit him on purpose because he just doesn't want to deal with pitching to him. So I do get why he would feel that way and why it comes across like it looks like that when on 2 different occasions, there's a situation in which Gerrit Cole was doing everything possible to avoid pitching to Devers. I get that. But for Alex Cora to go on record and tell the media that they were trying to intentionally hit Judge in retaliation, that is just really stupid. I mean, I'm sorry, but even if you are trying to do that, you don't say that out loud because then it leads to all these questions of, oh, are the Red Sox cheating? Like, is Alex Cora hitting people intentionally? Like, you know, what does that say about him and his team? He's not capable of managing his team the right way. So he has to resort to trying to hit batters intentionally. And it's a really bad look on Alex Cora and the team. And then it causes such a huge distraction. And I think in Alex Cora's defense, he was trying to spark a fire in this team and get this offense to wake up because of the fact that they're running out of time and they are not in a playoff spot right now. And he did say in that same interview, I hope that if we make the playoffs, we have to go against Gerrit Cole because he's going to have to pitch to him. So he made a statement really clear that Cole's going to have to be forced to pitch to Devers, and Cora wants to see that. And he said, I'm not promising that we're going to make the playoffs, but if we do, he's going to have to pitch to him, which is a valid point. But you don't come out on record to the media and say you were trying to hit somebody on purpose, because that is just something that's a disaster waiting to happen. And if he/the Red Sox face disciplinary action because of this, then imagine the look that's going to be on Cora moving forward. And he already has some red flags against him because of the whole Astros cheating scandal and his role in that whole thing. And with him trying to redeem himself and do things the right way and prove that he can manage this team successfully without having all of that baggage attached to him, this is not something that's going to help his cause. And it comes across very unprofessional, saying we're trying to hit this guy on purpose. And it's one thing if the pitch slips out of the pitcher's hand. Like that happens. Like when he's winding up for the pitch, maybe the ball just slips out and he hits somebody. Like that happens all the time. Like we see guys get hit by a pitch all the time, but you can't openly admit that you're doing that on purpose. And then it's also going to cause a distraction for the players because they're going to be like, well, what's going to happen to our manager? Is he going to face punishment? Like, are we going to face punishment? Like, what's the situation going to be here? And it's just a really bad look, and it's not fair to the players who are really frustrated as it is because of the fact that things just have not been going their way in the second half of the season. So for you to place more doubts in their head when they're already trying to work through issues that they've had since the All-Star break, that's not really fair to the guys, because the guys in this locker room go out there and put the work in, and they want to put their team in a position to succeed. Like they want to go out there and they want to do their absolute best so that this team can go out and win games. And when things haven't been going their way lately, the players have been really visibly frustrated by it. I mean, you could see Devers' facial expressions in the dugout. He's not happy about it. And these guys get fired up when they're not winning games. And this is a talented, special group that cares so much about winning and wanted to prove people wrong so badly this year. And for things to not go well, why would you cause more of an issue? So the whole thing is kind of a mess, and it further solidifies that this season is becoming more and more of a mess for the Red Sox. And at this point, I'm kind of just ready for the offseason for them to really start to fix this team and give us some optimism heading into next year, because every day that passes now, something else goes wrong with this Red Sox team or the organization or something of that capacity that reminds us just of how tough of a spot this Red Sox organization is in right now. So I think this is pretty clear as day of a sign now to know that this season for the Boston Red Sox is over, and they need to just get through these next few weeks and move into the offseason. And the front office really needs to do some self-reflection and start to think about what actually needs to happen for them to, one, gain trust back from the fans, and for two, to really build this team to be a contender in 2025. Because coming up, we're going to be talking about where they stand right now and why it's kind of a double-edged sword for the Red Sox this season. If you like sports betting or you've been interested in getting into it, FanDuel is the perfect place for you. My fiance is on it every day, making bets on different teams and different sports, and he's absolutely addicted. You've heard me talk a lot about it. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, but I do have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. I'm telling you, you can win so much money on it, but don't blame me if you get addicted, because I am warning you right now. But I highly recommend you download FanDuel now. So Alex Cora has all this tension right now with the media, and Major League Baseball is investigating him for potentially plotting to hit Aaron Judge with a pitch on purpose in the Yankees series over the weekend, which was just not a smart idea at all, and they might end up paying the consequences for that. But as we look ahead to the rest of this season, it's been made pretty clear as day now that the offseason just needs to get here. The Red Sox need to get themselves to that and get to the point where they're genuinely doing things to fix this team and making the necessary moves to make sure that this team is back in contention in 2025. Because now it was announced today that they are officially out of the AL East division running. They are 12 games out of first place at exactly 500, 75 and 75. The Yankees are in first place at 87 and 63, with the Orioles 3 games behind them at 84 and 66. So the Red Sox at this point in the season can no longer win the division. They are 4.5 games out of the final wild card spot, with both the Mariners and Tigers tied for 2.5 games back. So the Red Sox have to jump ahead of both of those teams and ahead of the Twins. So jumping ahead of 3 teams with as little of the season that's left is looking very unlikely. But them missing the playoffs this year, the question becomes, is that really a failure for them? Because yes, in general, with Red Sox Nation and what John Henry established early on in his tenure, this is a winning franchise. We expect winning. We expect to have a competitive baseball team on the field year after year. But based on what's gone on the last few seasons and the fact that people thought the Red Sox were going to be really bad this year, finishing last in their division, and they're third in the division, and they're just a straight up average baseball team that's sitting right at 500, what does that really mean moving forward? Like, I'm definitely not going to sit here and say I'm happy at all with how this season has gone, especially with the fact that they were 10 games over 500 at one point and now they're sitting at 500. That's definitely not ideal. But what we can say is they did exceed expectations a little bit relative to where they were supposed to be at. And they beat some teams that they really had no business beating this year. And some of the young talent developed at a more rapid pace than the Red Sox really thought that they would. So that's all stuff that we can take away from this season to say that they exceeded expectations. However, the expectations weren't good enough in the first place. The expectations that was set forth by the front office because of the moves they made in the offseason last year or lack thereof were not moves that set the Red Sox expectations for the year pretty high. And that's what the issue is. Like, that's what needs to change here. Like, if the Red Sox exceed expectations, great. But if they're exceeding expectations that were set at a high level, that's a lot different than exceeding expectations that were set at a really low level. And with where the Red Sox were at and the fact that they weren't as aggressive as they claimed that they were going to be in the offseason, the expectations were set very low for this team. And lots of people thought that they were going to be just like last year with a 78 win record and finishing in last place in the division, but they're kind of lucky that the Blue Jays were as bad as they were this year, and that helped the Red Sox a little bit. But in general, lots needs to change this offseason, and it's on the front office to make those changes and try to fix the relationship they have with the fans. Because at this point, the fans are completely out on John Henry and Sam Kennedy. I don't believe a word coming out of either one of their mouths right now. And if they say we're going to go full throttle, I'm not believing it until it actually happens and until they show that they're going to be aggressive and they're going to make the moves necessary to make this team competitive again. And it can happen. Like I have said many times on this show, the Red Sox have talent. And that is so prevalent from what we've seen, especially on the offensive side of the ball this year. They have players who can hit, and they have guys who can go out there and get the job done. And from a pitching standpoint, the primary issue was they didn't have a true ace. I mean, Tanner Houck for sure has the ability to be a number 2 starter, but he's not a number 1 starter, nor should the Red Sox be trying to force that out of him when they can go out and spend money and sign a true number 1 starter. They have the money. They're one of the richest organizations in Major League Baseball, so they can afford to offer money to one of the high-end free agent starters on the market this year. But the question is, will they? And that's where we're at with this Red Sox team right now, is that yes, they may have exceeded expectations this year in terms of where people thought they were going to be at, but the issue isn't that. The issue is how low the expectations were. And the expectations can be much higher if ownership / the front office do the right thing and make the right moves to get the team out there that's respectable, that can be in the playoff conversation, because Red Sox fans expect and deserve their team to be in the playoff conversation. I mean, the Boston Red Sox are one of the most historic franchises in baseball, and they're going to sit here and say, we can't afford this player, or we don't want to dish out the money on this player because this team isn't ready to contend yet. That's not fair to say, because for a big portion of this season, the Red Sox were very heavily in that wild card conversation. So to give up the momentum on this team because you don't want to spend money is such a lazy and bad way to go about the offseason. So did they exceed expectations for the season? Some could argue yes, because there were a lot of people who thought they'd be a 78-win team again and that they would finish in last in the division. So I think it's fair to say that in that regard, they exceeded expectations, but it's also fair to say that the expectations were too low and not what the Boston Red Sox expectations should be. So we'll see what happens this offseason. It's going to be a huge one for John Henry, Sam Kennedy, and Craig Breslow to have a big offseason. Ownership needs to be willing to break open the checkbooks and sign somebody. And they need to not be afraid to shy away from the best players on the market to put them back in a position to succeed. It's better for baseball when the Boston Red Sox are good. They're one of the most historic franchises, like I said, and it's a lot better for the sport when they're good. And it's better if both the Red Sox and Yankees are good, because they can restore the rivalry of old. It's no fun when the Red Sox are just a mediocre baseball team and they're not able to match up talent and ability wise to some of these other teams in their division. So they need to do what they can to get back on track. Give us expectations that are higher that we can be excited about, not a team that you're going to field that is lucky to even be at 500 right now. So we will see what happens there, but the Red Sox have been officially eliminated from the possibility of winning the AL East. So if they are going to make the playoffs, the absolute best they can hope for right now is if they get a wild card spot, but chances are that are looking very, very slim at this point now too. So what I will say now, and this applies more to next year than this year, is to keep the faith. I mean, the future of this organization is very bright, so you can take that with you as you work on keeping that faith. Make sure you turn into Locked On MLB after this. I appreciate you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen today. Sully, aka Paul Sullivan, has it all covered every day, giving you updates on everything going on across the league. So you can find his show wherever you listen to podcasts right after this. Go Red Sox, and I will catch you on the flip side.